at Banana Pancakes by Jack Johnson. If you are new to bar chords or wanting to explore bar chords or in the process of working that into your toolbox, so to speak, this would be a great song for that. Lots of transitions between chords that you can make heavy use of. Jack Johnson in particular seems to really like using bar chords, at least for the songs of his that I've played. And so, you know, if you're new to it, take your time with it, certainly. This isn't going to be a lesson necessarily about how to play those bar chords. I might make a couple tips here and there, or offer a couple tips, but, you know, this is not strictly about that. We're going to go through the lesson. And then, of course, if you have questions as a follow-up, I'll be happy to answer them. But anyways, let's go through the chords we're going to be using. So we have an A minor 7. That's a big bar there because really I only have one other finger on aside from my bar. So I'm all the way across the 5th fret there, and then my 3rd finger is on string 5, fret 7. A minor 7. And if we just take that shape, slide it back 2 frets to the 3rd fret, and then my ring finger's on the 5th fret, and I'm going to add my middle finger on string 3, fret 4, G7. Those are the 2 most frequently used chords in this song. And then we also have a D7 chord, which is basically like our C chord or C7 chord in open position. Just shifted up to 3rd position here. So I'm on string 5, fret 5, and string 4, fret 4, string 3, fret 5, and string 2, fret 3. And I'm muting 6 and 1 there. Right? D7 chord. And then we also have a C7 here, and you can see I'm using my middle finger to reinforce the bar. This is bars on the 3rd fret. I've got string 5, fret 3, string 4, fret 5 with my ring finger, string 3, fret 3 with the bar, string 2, fret 5 with finger 4, my pinky, and if you don't get it in, not that big of a deal, but string 1, fret 3 lands under the bar as well. Let's see, what else do we have aside from that? We got a couple other chords. We got a D major chord, which is going to be in this shape right here. So I've got string 5, fret 5, and then on strings 4, 3, and 2, I'm barring with my ring finger. That's typically how you'll see people play this type of bar chord, where the bar is kind of switched. I'm using a bar here, and I'm not using a bar there. I'm not worrying about string 1, so I'm only playing string 5 there. So fret-wise, that's 5, 7, 7, 7, D major. We also have a B minor 7 chord, so if you remember our A minor 7 chord, slide that up 2 frets. So you're on 7, 9, 7, 7, 7, 7. That doesn't come around till the bridge. Then we got an E minor chord. And I'll eliminate string 1 from this one as well, just so we can get this little bass line thing happening. String 5, fret 7, string 4, fret 9, string 3, fret 9, and string 2, fret 8. E minor, and then we're going to have E minor over D sharp, which means we just take that index finger and shift it down 1 fret to fret 6. We also have a C major, which is in that same position as C7, but I'm using that finger 3 bar like on the D chord there. And then towards the end of the bridge, there's a G major chord. So our G7 chord, but with the pinky added on string 4, fret 5. So if you're totally unfamiliar with bar chords, go check out you know, another lesson on that information. But you know, this probably feels pretty confusing if you haven't touched it at all. But if you're willing to jump into it, you'll take away quite a bit from it. All right, let's jump into the intro. So remember, this song is swing feel, so it's got that hop along feel. Means the downbeat is longer and the upbeat is shorter. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that'll be obvious in all the eighth notes that we play. So the intro, we're going to be using a lot of string 6 really, and you can just think of it as a bass line to connect the A minor 7 and the G7 chord. So majority of notes we're going to be playing are going to be the open 6 string, 3rd fret on the 6th string, 5th fret, 7th fret, and then we're going to throw in the string 5 fret 5 and just once string 5 fret 7. So just getting your fingers to move around in that pattern can help just to get you to visualize things. All right, starting with the intro, I'm going to use a little grace note hammer-on from 5 to 7, string 5 fret 5, string 6 fret 7, string 6 fret 5, string 6 fret 3 with a slide there, and then I'm going to take my finger off, play the open 6 string, and come back to my A minor 7. Then I get my A minor 7 chord on. I'm going to put a little rake in there, and then strum the chord up. So altogether that would be basically the same thing, but we end up on the G7 chord instead. Right there. Instead of going back to the 5th fret. Same thing with a little kind of palm muted rake thing. And then up on the chord. And here it changes slightly. I'm going to go to the 7th fret on string 5. Back to string 5 fret 5, string 6 fret 7, open string 6, into my 5th fret and A minor 7 chord, and then back to the original riff to work our way to the G7 chord. All of that together, then there's just a little bit of strumming with the G7 and D7 chord, and I'll play that as I do demo the whole intro here. Here we go. My fingers there. This is kind of happening throughout the strumming. We just let the strings push your fingers up. Let me play that all a little bit faster. Take us into the verse, which is short in terms of the material you have to play, but it's frequently changing chords. So we'll look at that in a little bit more detail. The strum pattern is going to be pretty simple. There's a little kind of raking action happening, but it just happens incidentally through moving your hand, really. So you're playing it slow, it might not come out necessarily, but when your hands are flowing and you're playing at speed, it starts to come out a little bit easier. So don't worry too much about that, but it's going to be, I try to focus on playing either the bass note, the lowest note of the chord, or just the low end of the chord, and then strum through the rest of it. So just kind of hit the low end of the bass note, strum, and then as you're transitioning, you come up. And then same thing for the D7 chord. Same thing for the A minor 7 chord. And same thing for the C7 chord. And you're just kind of keeping that momentum. To remember that some of these things, when you play them slow, they're not going to come out exactly the way we want. It's kind of harder to control in a sense of making that sound happen. But one thing I want to point out, especially because those transitions are happening every 2 beats very quickly, we have our G7 chord. You want to make sure you don't lift your fingers off to get to each chord. You might see me doing that, but don't worry about that. If you need help with the transitions, that third finger is already where it needs to be to get to the D7. So I'm going to bump my middle finger up to the 4th string here, just climb up one, and at the same time be bringing that index finger down, thinking about that C chord shape, and then my pinky can follow. Think about the pinky last, because because it's being used, you might want to think about it more, and then that kind of messes up the transition. Right, so G7, and then I'm going to think about getting in the C shape, moving my 1st and 2nd fingers, get that to happen, and then let the pinky follow. Then going to the A minor 7 chord, that 3rd finger is already where it needs to be, but we're just going to slide it along the string here to the 7th fret and put my bar down on the 5th fret. And there's not necessarily a common finger, but just a common thread for everything that you do on guitar. Just move as little as possible. All right, so as I move back to C7, I don't want to jump my hand off. I'm just going to guide it down the strings and try and take that shape of the chord as I transition. So this is already pretty close. This finger just needs to come down one string, and so does my bar. So as I slide over, I'm just going to let those fingers drag across the strings, and then I place my pinky there. Okay. If you're new to bar chords, don't let if you've got a lack of sound coming out from the guitar, there's adjustments that we can make. And one thing I will say is make sure that your bar stays pretty straight for the most part, right up next to the fret bar, and make sure you're clamping, right? That thumb position can be very important, and if you're drifting off to the side of your index finger outside of it, you're not going to have a lot of leverage here. You also need to watch how much of a gap or how much your wrist is dropping, how much of a gap underneath here, underneath the neck, because that makes it really hard to press, and you also probably start to get pain elsewhere real quick. So compact hand shape there, and just clamp the fingers. But in any case, my point was, if they're not coming out completely clean, take it easy on yourself. That stuff comes in due time, but just doing it is going to help you build strength, and then you'll learn how to manipulate your fingers more and more as you go through it to get the strings to ring out that you want to ring out. The toughest ones are going to be the strings that land kind of in the middle of the index finger, because we have gaps there, so that's where it needs to be really straight. You don't want to have it curled, because then it's not going to have those strings down. Anyways, so just a side note. So again, that was G7, hitting the low end, strumming up as I transition, D7, strum down, up as I transition, A minor 7, up as I transition, C7, and then it repeats all over. So it's just going to be A minor 7 and G7 back and forth, and we're also going to, it's basically like the intro. We have that riff, come back, and that's how we transition between the A minor 7 and the G7. So the strum pattern is going to be down, up, break, up, down, up, break, up, down, and then we're going to have the little riff. So on that strum pattern, once you're into the riff, the first down strum that I said is going to be just that lowest note, because we're getting into either our root of the A minor 7 chord or root of the G7 chord. So that will be the first strum. And you see what I mean when I put it all together. So one instance of that, A minor 7. Okay, this will be the same thing for the G7 chord. I'm just going to play that bass note on the first strum, right? Let's speed that up a little bit. So if it's turning around to go back to the verse, then you've got that G7 and that little pulsing of the D7, just like we saw in the intro. But if it's going to the bridge, then we just stay with the A minor 7, same strum pattern, and G7, same strum pattern, no riff. A minor 7 and G7. And that's the pattern we're going to be playing all the way through here into the bridge. It only comes around once, of course, which starts with A minor 7. To a D major. A minor 7. And D. And B minor 7. And E minor with D sharp in the bass, C, G, D7, G, and we're back into the verse. So on and so forth. So a quick little note about the raking on the strum pattern. If you're not familiar with that, use the heel of your hand here, right? And that's going, don't alter, like don't pop your wrist out, don't change the way that you're strumming. You just need that part of your hand to land on the strings and then have your pick follow. And with bar chords, it's a lot easier to do because you can also use the left hand or only use the left hand, where you just relax the bar, relax all your fingers. Depending on the sound, in this song I tend to like the little bit more aggressive sound of using my right hand, as well using the heel of my right hand, but I'll often let my left hand pulse as well. You can see it relax there. So we're just turning the guitar into a percussion instrument. just wanted to make a little side note there. There's different ways that you can play that riff. You know, whether you slide, hammer, what have you. Fingers 1 and 3 are going to work best, but you know, you might find another way of maneuvering in between, and that's totally fine. Don't feel confined to do exactly what somebody else tells you to do, but if you're not really sure how to change it up, then go ahead and follow those guidelines. I think that's it. We went over all the chords in the beginning. Yeah, and then of course once you work through each section, go back to the beginning and listen to the full play along there and compare it to what you're hearing in the audio, and you know, don't get too caught up in needing to know every last little detail about the song form before you play. Just get the big chunks down, and as you listen to it and play along, you're going to figure that out for yourself. It's good to use your ear. Don't feel like you have to have that information right away. That's how we train the ears to get stronger and be able to you know, analyze more. So have fun with that, guys, and let me know if you have any questions. As always, I will see you in the next video. Thanks.